Hi everyone, this is Felicia, Super Nerdy Church Girl, and I'm here to review episodes 3 and 4 of Killer Mike's Trigger Warning. So, episode 3 is called White Gang Privilege, and um, it's kind of a unique take on the lack of branding or commercialization of street gangs, black street gangs. So, Killer Mike is looking to create a product that the Crips, which is a gang in LA, I believe, California, can market. And he basically says like the white gangs, such as the Hell's Angels, which is a notoriously violent biker gang, they have like biker gear and etc. And they monetize their brand. So he's looking to do that for the Crips. So he goes to a trap house and Google trap house. I mean, I'm not getting into all that. And to discuss, with some Crips, like he gives like a little brief background of like gang activity and what the Crips mean to them, and basically he's just like, oh, it's like a fraternity. They do good things in the community, etc., etc. They just have a negative. They have a negative brand image, pretty much. So he talks to these guys, and he poses this idea of having some type of product. So initially, one of the guys suggested like zipper jackets or something like that, and for some reason, I just thought of Michael Jackson, in that Bad video, and they have the opposite gangs and they're fighting, and I was just like, oh wow, this is hilarious. But yeah, so they come up with a cola. So they go to a bank, and I know this isn't, a lot of it's just meant to be humorous. I get it. They go to a bank to get a business loan, and then they, realize they haven't been keeping books because whatever they sell isn't on the books, it's pretty off the books. So they have to start by making the cola in their trap house, bottling it up, and then they try to sell it to different stores, and people are frightened. They're just like, okay, we don't want to carry a gang affiliated soda because we don't want anyone to be violent because someone's buying their rival gang soda, etc., etc. So then he takes them, they go to like a marketing firm, research firm, so they can do like a focus group. And then they have a group of non-black people, and they taste the soda, they like it, but when they present them with the whole Crips, and before this they've created a logo, branding, a label, all of that, and folks are just giving them those stereotypical things about gangs. Like in the focus group, they're just like, oh, you could get shot if you're caught with rival gang's colors, and etc., etc. So then they have the guys come out, the Crips. I'm sorry, I don't remember their names. And they kind of try to explain to these guys that what they're trying to do. And there's this one like Puerto Rican guy in the room, and he's giving like these really textbook conservative, right wing responses. And so Killer Mike kind of calls him out on that, and he's like, you're putting me in a box because I'm brown and I'm a minority. And they have a little back and forth exchange. So then I may have missed something, but they decide to go to like a farmer's market, I believe, and they set up a tent. But before then, he given that the focus group, they were worried about like rival gangs, meaning the Bloods, being upset that the Crips, the Bloods are red, Crips are blue, are selling a soda. He solicits some of his blood friends It's like, okay, you guys make a soda too. So then they have like a red tent and a blue tent, and they're like competing for sales and things like that. Um, so it's it was interesting. I'm an entrepreneur. I just got back from an event, the Jack and Jill of America, their founders luncheon, and I was selling my books. So I get that hustle, and I applaud entrepreneurship, and I really like that part about the episode. The one thing that I would say Killer Mike achieved his premise. He wanted to, create a product and a brand that showed gangs in a positive light. And I think what he may have been doing also, and maybe in a subversive way, is to give those guys a creative and a profitable outlet where they can make money legitimately. So I apply that too because, look, I'm from Chicago, and there are a lot of gangs, and a lot of those guys, the gangs are I don't know how it is in California, but the gangs are mainly for protection because they're selling drugs. But in the meantime, they're shooting each other up. So a lot of that gun violence that you hear about in Chicago is gang related, in retaliation, pretty much. But it's also gang affiliated in some way. And that's the one thing I think he kind of glossed over in this episode, is that the reality of what gangs are known for. But I don't really fault him because I think he's trying to pivot and say, okay, we're a group of guys who are closely knit, either it's by neighborhood or familiar relation or whatever. But if we could take that energy and divert it into something positive, that would be great. And I've always thought to myself that if the brothers in the hood had access to capital, had access to the same education and the support, meaning not being overly policed, then that entrepreneurial energy, that drive, that intelligence that can allow someone to sell drugs, you can sell, cars, you can sell books, you can sell an invention, you can create, something of your own and market that. And that's really, so I appreciated this episode for that aspect of it. The only negative I would have to say is that he didn't really get into the reality of what gang life is really all about. It's not all peaches and roses, but I would assume that wasn't the goal of this episode. So yeah, I'll say great job. I enjoyed it. So the next episode, episode 4, is the new Jesus. So Killer Mike wants to challenge the myth of white Jesus. So we know that Michelangelo painting, they paint Jesus as white, as blonde, with, this straight nose and pale skin and etc. Although in the Bible, he's described as having hair like wool, and if wool is rough, having skin of bronze, and bronze is very brown. So this, I kind of feel like, okay, so every episode has a theme, and I also believe has a goal. So the goal is to challenge to challenge traditional thought on religion and spirituality, that people think of spirituality as something outside themselves and toward a figure, like a Buddha or something like that. And basically he's saying that you are divine and you should look inside yourself. And I'm just like, okay, I think that point was made in The Wizard of Oz, but I'm sorry. I just, it takes a lot to wow me, maybe, because I would say pretty well read, although I haven't read everything. But when someone thinks they're coming up with these great, grand new concepts, it's just like, okay, that's for you. And if you saw my last review, in which, I felt like he was kind of disparaging like higher education. Sometimes I feel like when people come out with these thoughts, I'm like, if you'd gone to college and you had read some philosophers, if you had read some, psychoanalysts, if you had read some of the Harlem Renaissance authors, like they were introducing like new ways of thinking and new ways of thought and challenging traditional beliefs within those writings. So it's not like this grand new concept, but if you haven't read it, then it's new to you. So I get it. So basically he starts off with Creflo Dollar. Now that's already a problem with me because I don't think Creflo Dollar represents I would say what traditional Black Christianity is. I think if you were to go back, you'd have to look at like the AME Church, the Church of God in Christ, and the Black Baptist Church, because those are kind of those three pillar churches. If you look into church history, and if I'm not mistaken, Creflo Dollar is more like this new age mega church, non-denominational, gospel of prosperity type of preacher. And I mean, if he wants to draw this big contrast, then of course Creflo Dollar would be the perfect person to feature in your documentary. So I was just like, I was kind of cringy a little bit when he showed Creflo Dollar. No shade to Creflo, but I don't think of him when I think of traditional doctrine. So yeah. So he's basically challenging Creflo Dollar to demand a white Jesus, to lead his new religion, very outrageous things that he knows he's not going to agree to. So he's just like, oh, well, we're going to start our own religion. And so then he brings his friend called Sleep or Sleepy, because he kind of looks like he's always asleep. He kind of looks like he has some type of syndrome because his eyes are hung low, or he could just be high all the time, like marijuana high. So he meets with Sleepy. He's just like, I want you to be our Messiah. You're the most righteous dude I know, yada, yada, yada. So he and Sleepy go outside the church with the bullhorn, and they're trying to preach, and the parishioners are coming out of the church, and one of the ladies like, what you out here yelling about, Killer Mike? And so it's kind of, it's funny. It's pretty funny. So yeah, he gets a few people interested, and they go to like a barbershop to talk, and then like he has this exercise where they lay down on these mats, pillows, and rest for 15 minutes, and then when they get up, they're gonna write in this Bible. So he has this Bible, like leather cover, but the pages are empty because they're gonna create this religion. So when people get up from the nap and the rest and the sleep, they feel so energized and so relaxed and pretty much good, because one of the points he also makes in this episode, which is very, very true, is that we as a people don't get enough rest. I mean, there is documented, like, Black people feel a higher level of anxiety, of being over-policed, of being living in, I guess, noisier neighborhoods, more confined neighborhoods, more dangerous neighborhoods. And then this drive to always do better financially. So, sleep not being an option. Like, it's always team no sleep. If you sleep in, you're going backwards and that type of thing. And then he did make a point that I never really thought about, is that slaves were whipped more often for oversleeping than anything else. And so it has been kind of indoctrinated, maybe that's not the word I'm looking for, but it's been passed down or drilled into us even back from old slavery times, that sleep is a vice, but when sleep is really what's necessary to rejuvenate your mind, to rejuvenate your cells, So physically and mentally, and that ultimately is going to affect you spiritually. And when they were interviewing the different converts, mainly you get a lot of the guys who are confessing that they are stressed. And that kind of brings me to, I was just reading about this wellness salon that these Kappas opened in like Brooklyn. And oh gosh, I need to find it. But mainly it's like self-care for men. So you can get counseling and you can get like massages or, meditation and things like that, which I think is very needed. But that's kind of a tangent. Maybe I'll do another video on that. So they, Killer Mike's has to bring the joke. So they ended up going to like the Blue. I wrote it down. It's a strip club that they always feature him in like a strip club, the Blue Flame or whatever. And so, he has Sleepy there, and Sleepy never says anything. Like even when they were introducing, I failed to mention they wanted to make a Bible and they took it to a publisher, and she's basically like, yeah, I'm not interested. But even during that time, Killer Mike's like, oh, I do the talking, because she's, Sleepy won't say anything. Then they talk to a black writer of street fiction, and because they want him to help write this Bible, and Sleepy never says anything. So he's a very silent messiah, and it's kind of, they end up at the strip club, and there are some good points, like in between the jokes and the, shock or whatever, the sex or whatever, and the drugs. They make some good points about people being able to see the divinity within themselves, people being able to connect with one another as human beings, and, not being there for yourself before you can be there for others. Like he gives the Converse robes, and he's basically like, when you're wearing this robe, nobody can bring you their problems, kind of reminds me of the Wiz, and she's like, don't bring me no bad news. So I kind of like that. I don't agree with, his philosophy. Like he says, the philosophy of sleep is F hope, do dope. And I'm just like, okay. I mean, I guess, but no. And the whole, like, being anti-Jesus, I mean, it's like everybody kind of does that. Like, whenever they're trying to be rebellious, or whenever they're trying to be countercultural or shocking or controversial or whatever, everybody attacks like Jesus. And I get it, because a lot of people believe in Jesus. And not just that, a lot of people have done, a lot of negative things in the name of Christianity. So I get that part too. But it's, it's interesting. I'm going to go ahead and finish the series. It's like 2 more episodes, but it's probably not something I would watch again, just because it's not my thing. I think his target audience is not me, it's a different demographic. But I started it, I'm going to complete it, and it's not bad. And I'm all for challenging your beliefs. Like, I'm a Christian, but hey, my faith isn't a faith of, I can only believe this if nothing ever contradicts or nothing ever challenges my faith. Your faith, it's built, daily, and it's stronger. Which kind of brings me to something he said. Like, one of his philosophy was like, steel sharpens steel. But that's actually from the Bible. And it's iron. In the Bible, it says iron sharpens iron. So like a man sharpens the countenance of his friends. So that's in like one of the Psalms or the Proverbs, one of them. But it's in the Bible. So it's kind of funny, like when people feel like they are, they have these grand philosophies of life, and then they kind of go back to the word of God. So that's just my 2 cents. Has anyone else watched it? Anyone has any different views? I would love to discuss it with you. And please disagree with me in the comments. Thanks guys for watching. Bye.